We'll see on the other side, JDG deciding what jungler to go for. We saw the Lilia hover for a second there, and I feel like Lilia has been pretty much just ignored in this series. She is one of the strongest junglers on patch 11.3. I'm a little surprised that we're not seeing more of her today, but it's going to be the Gragas locked in. Kind of that flex pick, very likely to go up towards Zoom on the top lane. And we'll see where they go for this jungle pick as their third lock-in.
Now, maybe just going to go back towards something that is comfort. We did see him go towards the Graves in the first game. Again, they were able to pull out a win with that. I think Kanavi is very proficient on team fighting on this jungler, and that's where we've seen JDG index into, right? Ooh, though, we get the Dr. Mundo, who has been pulled out as one of the counter picks up against the Udyr. You can match his clear speed, and then he just becomes such an unkillable annoyance in these fights later on.
Yeah, Mundo is a monster. I'm excited to see Kanavi's Mundo stepping onto the Rift, because this is one of those picks that you don't get to see very often, and it's not something Kanavi specifically has played this split, but it's something we've seen little sprinklings of in the LPL, and it can cause a little bit of chaos. Twilight going to go with this Syndra as kind of that very standard blind mid lane pick. This Syndra, the Orianna, the Zoe, these are the picks that you really can just go for in any situation. But up against the Azir as well, it's one of those handshake lanes where you're quite happy to both just clear the wave and try and impact the game elsewhere on the map. But it's going to be Tristana and Ezreal as we get more and more AD carry bans across the course of this series.
And we've had a lot of interesting AD carry picks coming out so far, right? We've already had the Ezreal come out. We had the Vayne in the last game. Now for TT, I wonder where they go. They obviously need something that can burn down frontline. They need something that can outrange the enemy team. I keep pointing out towards this Aphelios pick, and I think it would be something that fits TT's comp quite well, but they're going to go with their top laner right now, as, you know, JDG have already shown the Gragas.
Yeah, we do have the Gragas, but Gangplank being hovered right here. This could be a flex Gragas going down to the support role, I would assume, as you're going to assume that the Mundo is in the jungle. Knowing that Jhin hover, I think that is going to be the case. So Jhin for Loken. This is one of the picks that we talked about for Loken. These long-range AD carries, very much a utility pick. And you can see how this composition kind of functions around Yagao being the star player and the premium carry on the squad.
And I like that JDG are going back towards the composition that's like, hey, we're going to wait out the early game. I feel like it has a lot of ways to deal with like early game proactive pushes coming out from TT with the cannon barrage coming out. They have the wave clear necessary. They should be able to match in most of these lanes. And TT going back towards the Lucian that we saw Sam D pulling out. It's once again about early game aggression.
Yep. Early game aggression, very much the name of the game. You're absolutely right there, Lyric. I'm not 100% sure if we're having any connection issues on the broadcast or if that's just yours and my connection, but I apologize if I'm repeating you at all. I can't hear every word that you're saying right now, but it is going to be that Lucian and Rell, so the aggression in that bot lane 2v2. This is what we called for. This is what we wanted out from the side of TT, being able to abuse the fact that they are strong laners, that they can win out in the 2v2. And over to JDG, like, I don't even want to talk about compositions here. I just want to talk about what the expectation should be for JDG. This is one of our top teams. This is our Spring 2020 champions. This is a Worlds semi-finalist, or Worlds quarterfinalist, sorry. As we need to see a little bit more from JDG. We need to see them showing up, because this is the same squad that it was last year. In theory, they had a coach upgrade. They've got Chashao, who made it all the way to finals of Worlds with Suning last year. This should be a super squad, and all that we've seen is lackluster.
And again, it's going to be a very similar story, which is not what fans of JDG want to hear, where you're not the team with Prio in the early game. Though I do think Azir is able to match up against the Syndra. He can fight for Prio early on. At level 6, you actually have kill pressure if your jungle does come and look for a gank, so you can set up with Kanavi. But when we look towards bot and top side, GP actually can hold his own against Gnar early, but once it gets a bit later on, components start coming out. Chelizi will be able to get Prio, and bot lane is going to be a complete brawl for who comes out ahead.
And also, like, let's just take a moment before the game kicks off properly and appreciate that we get Zoom on Gangplank. Zoom's Gangplank is an absolute classic here in the LPL. He is insanely good at it. Very much the kind of Captain Jack Sparrow figure within the LPL, which has been attributed to quite a few LPL players at this point. As we are going to zoom in on Chelizi. I mean, he's cute. He's got a onesie on, so that's adorable. But yeah, across the board, expecting a reasonable amount of just scaling from JDG, which I feel like is their comfort zone. As a team, when you think of JDG, this is the kind of composition you think of.
I agree, and kind of zoning in more on that Zoom GP point to talk about this matchup a little bit. People might wonder, hey, why does GP do well against Gnar early? And a lot of it just comes down to like a range advantage. That GP Q range outranges Gnar. Gnar's auto range at level 1 is only 400 off the top of my head, to where GP's Q is like 525 or something along those lines. So you can continuously look for these trades. You also have your passive available if you can get up into auto range. You're going to out-sustain him as well with your oranges and the grasp. So yeah, Zoom going to be able to do a lot in this matchup.
That was so weird. It looked like he was in auto range, but just couldn't quite get the auto onto Chelizi there. That was a little comical, but you could see already Samdi and Teen kind of positioning for the 2v2 here. If they can get those first three, or the second three, sorry, melee minions taken down before their opponents, they will find that level 2 spike and maybe an all-in opportunity, because Loken and LvMao did not respect that in game number 2. Wouldn't be too surprising to see that again.
The thing, though, is when you draft the Lucian, especially up against Dr. Mundo and Gragas, it really is do or die for TT in the early game. Lucian's not really going to be able to put out the damage, and Syndra to kill the likes of a Dr. Mundo later on in the game. So can TT have as explosive as an early game as they did last time around? We do see Xiaopeng going towards the top side, so maybe can get a gank off on Zoom before his first reset, and then look to pivot towards the bottom lane.
Yeah, it does feel like TT have really doubled down on the, okay, we're not going to win in the mid and late game. We're not good at the shot calling. We're not good at the team fight. And let's just leave that out for now. And let's play for the early game. Let's just try and win before 20 minutes and see if that strategy will work out. They've gained the lead early on in game 1 and 2 of this series. And Xiaopeng wants to make it 3 as he looks for an opportunity on the top side. But he's going to be found by an infected cleaver as Kanavi's on the case. Zoom pops him a shot from his pistol. And Xiaopeng is chased out of his own jungle.
Yeah, that's the result of the mirroring paths coming out from Kanavi, right? They both full clear towards topside. We talked about how Mundo is able to match Udyr's clear speed. He knows he needs to hover around topside because Zoom hasn't crashed in his wave yet, and it forces Xiaopeng to go back towards the bottom side of the map. I also want to turn our focus towards mid real quick to point out that, hey, you know, I think this matchup used to be way more Syndra favored like last year, but over the few patches, Syndra's got a ton of nerfs. As I'm going to stop because Xiaopeng's going in, Munchables.
Here we go. Gank attempt number 2. This time onto Yagao, who just zooms halfway across the map with a little slide, and he's going to get out of there. So Xiaopeng, 2 attempts and both unsuccessful.
But yeah, going back to my last point, we've seen like things like the Q mana nerfs many patches ago, Q damage nerfs. I think her E got hit at some point within the last like 5 to 10 patches as well. And Azir is able to just pretty much ignore the Syndra. You're going to go for a bit of trading and poking out with the Arcane Comet, but it's mostly about just controlling the waves because you do have good wave clear, and you're going to quickly get to a point where you don't have to worry too much about the Syndra.
And that, I feel like that's sort of been the story of this series. And honestly, a lot of this split in LPL, Syndra still seems to be a really high priority pick in LPL as Yagao looks for the 1v1 on Twyla right here. 1 or 2 more autos to do the trick. The Comet, not quite enough. And the Corrupting Potion will keep Twyla alive, but that was as dicey gets right there. Now Xiaopeng looking for Kanavi, or Kanavi's looking for him. Level 5 already on this Mundo, and Xiaopeng getting chased out of his jungle once more. Xiaopeng is just not having fun this game. He's not allowed to enjoy League of Legends today. Smite comes out from Kanavi and maybe can look for a kill. Xiaopeng gets under the tower though. I think he just has to concede the bottom half of his jungle.
And this also goes to the different buys we saw on first backs from junglers, right? We see Kanavi going with the W Ruby Crystal, which is very standard, but he obviously has more effective stats when it comes to this type of skirmish that he's looking for. To where Xiaopeng went for the Lucidity Boots. So sure, he can get off his rotations a bit faster, and obviously the movement speed I think is what you're really indexing for at this point in time, but isn't going to do him that much when Kanavi is just in his face looking for the duel compared to the health that Kanavi was getting.
So Kanavi gets an opportunity, though, because he was able to kick Xiaopeng towards the top side of the map. He can start the Drake off for himself, which is he's getting real low. Doesn't have Smite available right now. Oh, no, Kanavi. Smite came up at the last second. That was real scary for Kanavi, but you know what? Nobody saw on the side of TT. We'll just pretend that didn't happen. Now, Zoom's in trouble as the Goon Squad is getting ready towards the top side of the map. Here we go. Zoom's just like, hey guys, I'm really near my tower. I can see you. There's a wall.
And Munchables,
I'm fine.
He has Cannon Barrage and he has Flash. I don't see how this play would work out. You don't have ultimate yet on Rell. You don't really have too much going for you. Sure, Chelizi is going to win out this trade, but Zoom is just chilling.
Chilling like a villain. And he's feeling pretty good. Zoom is more than happy to just farm this one out, honestly. So long as he can just stay here and queue occasionally, get a couple of minions, eat a few oranges, he's going to feel pretty fantastic about life. And the same can be said pretty much across the board for JDG, right? The Azir, same story, just wants to get a CS lead, which very much is doing. Yagao's Azir is really exceptional. And down in the bottom side as well, Loken is happy to just scale up. Good flash from Twyla there. Nicely done as Yagao tries to make the attempt happen. But this game, we're seeing much more of the LvMao that we expected to see in this series. He's able to get out of that bot lane and try and make these plays around the map.
That's the thing, right? You have a Jhin who can just pretty much mindlessly clear waves. We even see Loken go into the plated steel cap, so he doesn't have to worry too much about a SAMD all-in. He will be fine. So now LvMao is getting more chances to impact the map, and I think both supports so far should be applauded for. They're both looking for opportunities. No one's just kind of sitting on their laurels waiting for things to happen. We've seen both roam already, you know, around that 5-minute mark, and again, JDG aren't even the team that has to look for these plays, but they still are. They still want to find an advantage.
Yeah, it's not about whether you have to with LvMao. It's about whether you want to. Whether you're getting a little bit antsy, a little bit bored in the game, and just want to make something happen. Which I can respect, especially when you've got Yagao on Azir in the mid lane. I feel like trying to make a roam towards him is always going to be worth your time. It's always going to be worth trying to set it up. Because Twyla now, with no flash available, that Empress Divide is going to come up in, I would say, maybe 30-40 seconds time. That's another opportunity right there for LvMao to try and make a play towards mid lane. If Kanavi comes along as well, that could be a kill.
And that's why we highlighted that. It's actually funny enough that before this matchup would be the opposite, where at level 6, Syndra should be the one with kill pressure. But it feels like, again, after the accumulation of all those nerfs, that Azir is fine and that he's the one that has a bit more kill pressure. Sure, you need to link up with another member of your team because you pretty much are just set up with your ultimate. But we've seen now that Yagao is doing that, but TT are the ones on Herald, and they just get it.
No contest this game, which is a good thing, right? This is exactly what we want from JDG, for them not to contest this kind of play because they don't need to. They don't actually have to fight right now. Could have a 2v2. Samdi and Teen here. Teen not level 6 just yet, so it does feel a little dicey if he did try and brute force a 2v2 in this situation. But all things considered, this is feeling pretty good for JDG. This is the kind of game that they want, just a quiet, slow, scaling game. On the side of TT then, let's talk about this win condition of trying to brute force it. How do they make that happen? Where are the plays that they should be looking for to get a snowball going?
I feel like it has to be all around the bottom lane, right? You have the Lucian and the Rell. You could look mid, but mid completely relies on Twyla, in my opinion, hitting a good scatter of the week, and then I don't even know with that you have the burst damage after Yagao just shifts away and then flashes. So pretty much you are indexing into the bot lane. The only problem is that with the fact that JDG have a GP on the other side, they always have to play around the cannon barrage window. Right now it is on cooldown. We do see that Xiaopeng is on the bottom side of the map, but Loken and LvMao timing their reset properly, there is no window to actually look for a gank right now.
Yep, really, really nicely done from the bot lane of JDG. And, you know, if there's one thing that we've said about JDG, it's that their macro historically has been pretty good. So understanding when to get their reset off, and then Loken can move back to the lane. LvMao can just wander around the map as you expect the supports to. Xiaopeng trying to find a way to move in towards the jungle. He's going to go towards mid lane, but obviously Yagao does have that Shurima shuffle available, so you don't expect much to come of any gank attempts. But Drake coming up in 20 seconds here, and it looks like TT are the ones that will have priority to move towards it.
They definitely will, right? We already see SamD moving up as well, so JDG gonna have to wait a bit of time for Loken to move over. Ooh, fight starts.
Oh, but they don't respect it. The fight starts here. TT with the advantage, culling across the team, but Xiaopeng denied by Yagao, and nobody dies. Curtain call across the team. Shots should be blocked, though, as Twyla walks away with his life. No kills just yet, but JDG low on health bars. That should force them away, but Loken now arriving. Xiaopeng has to flash out of the fight as well. Chelizi about to turn mega. Yagao just dips off towards the mid lane. TT, they don't get any kills, but they will be rewarded with a Drake.
Yeah, TT using their top lane prio to move Chelizi over. JDG are still posturing, though. Loken is full HP. He's making his way over.
Oh, Zoom's TP is about to come off of cooldown. Maybe they could make a play. The Dragon's already taken, though. I feel like TT do get away with this one. And again, JDG don't actually have to force a play here. This would just be them opting into it for the banter, I guess.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think JDG need to care too much about TT getting this Drake. And even if we get to a point where TT gets Soul, I feel like JDG outscale even the Infernal Soul. So it's not really too big of a deal. JDG are fine. We've already seen that even in a lot of these skirmishes at this point, they are fine to just tank a lot of the abilities that TT is throwing out. And heck, that's with Kanavi only on a Bomby Syndra and plated steel caps. So it's only going to get worse for the side of TT. And again, you asked me earlier, well, what can TT do? The problem is I think JDG have drafted a comp that is so good into answering what TT want to do. If JDG just, again, have the correct base timings, allocate jungle pressure accordingly, and counter these plays, TT don't have too many options to open up the game.
I think one of the really, really important things about this composition from JDG as well is the wave clear across the board. Like, how do you ever siege against this kind of composition? If you're trying to run this snowball comp and JDG just opts out of fights, there is no opportunity. You can't siege. Even if you've got a Baron, it's going to be difficult to make that happen. So this composition from JDG doing a really good job to kind of remove the win condition that we've seen from TT, which is their strong early game, the ability to snowball. And the fact that we are just at 0-0 on the scoreboard is not only completely different to the rest of the series. Twyla's in trouble. Yagao doesn't quite get close enough to go for the Emperor's Divide. Had flash available, but so did Twyla, so opts out of the play in the end. But again, this is completely fine for JDG. They do try and make plays, though. Like, they're still being proactive despite the scaling advantages they have, and I love to see that.
And it goes back to a point you made. I like that you highlighted the wave clear, but not only the wave clear, the fact that they have champions that can also fight for prio, right? GP can contest prio with Gnar. Azir is going back and forth with Syndra to get prio of the lane. Jhin is fine. SamD's on a reset as we see some trades in the top lane. That they're able to find opportunities to move, and that's how they've been able to counter out a lot of the aggression by TT. TT moves, and JDG will always be able to follow.
Yeah, we saw the full combo there from Chelizi. He wasn't trying to ult onto Zoom. It looked like he missed. He was just clearing the wave so he could get a reset here. Spike from Xiaopeng to take the blue buff away from Yagao, but JDG are not happy about this one. They're going to try and brute force a fight off the back of it. Cannon barrage. Teen left alone in with the Emperor's Divide. That was gorgeous from Yagao. We know his Azir is exceptional, and guess what? Jack Sparrow's back with a double for Zoo.
Really nice play coming out from JDG. I like that you highlight Yagao doing exceptionally there. Kanavi popping the turbo chem tank, and this is the annoyance we talked about with Mundo in this meta when he is in this matchup where he doesn't have to worry about any kind of invades. He does a really decent wave clear as well, and TT's comp is just has no real like tank busters that this Mundo's going to be able to thrive and be an annoyance who can just continuously chase down these members and slow them. And look, he doesn't have to care about SamD. Just walks right by him and goes on with the rest of his day.
Yeah, Mundo is kind of obnoxious right now, honestly. Like, it's so difficult to deal with. Let's take another look, though, as Kanavi just sprints at them at the speed of light. LvMao gets in there, and then it's Yagao, really, that you got to watch as he just zips over the wall, gets the flash to get the perfect ult.
And TT thought they could make this play because, you know, they had prio, they had mid moving first, but it goes back to the point we made that JDG's comp is always able to match the wave clear and always answer the rotation. They did just that. Yagao played exceptionally, and it just keeps going back to the composition. I feel like TT really put them a hole with this draft, and it's something they've done continuously. Again, they drafted a similar composition a few times against RA, and let's remember that they weren't able to close out those games. Sure, they did get one win with the Lucian, but that one even felt like it was more on RA's mistakes rather than TT really being able to push that one ahead themselves.
It's a bit of a brutal situation for TT when JDG are able to punish like this, and as you say, it's something we've seen before. Now over towards the bot side though, 3,000 gold lead in favor of JDG as they look to finish off a tower there. That would be the first, oh no, sorry, it would be the second tower of the game as the mid tower already went down. Herald in mid though is going to answer, at least TT are even in towers for the time being. Loken should be able to change that, but Kanavi will get a lot of tenacity from his ultimate Alottery. The culling barely tickles Kanavi. That is really sad to watch. Twyla now in trouble as the autos come through. The Comet to finish the kill. Oh, it's in shambles. TT, it looked so good for most of this series, but now behind in the early game with an early game or bust kind of composition, it's not a great situation. And last time we saw we saw Loken was able to just solo it out in the bottom side. He's doing the same thing again.
Let's remember that Loken has a 25 KDA on Jhin in his last 2 games. Again, as a champion he's very proficient on. It's a champion JDG feel very comfortable playing with. I will say right now we're seeing a good answer out of TT. They are making a correct cross-map play, realizing, hey, JDG have control bot side, we're going to look top lane. But going back to that last play, because I'm not sure if it's big enough to warrant a replay, LvMao had a really nice explosive cask to set up that 1 kill that Yagao got. And there isn't too much to say for the side of JDG. We just see Immortal Shield Bow coming out from Zoom, so his dueling potential going to go way up against this Gnar. Yagao keeps picking up gold, so he's going to get these core items. And as you said, the culling just tickled Kanavi. So for TT, you kind of have to start looking for cheese plays. You need to stack the brush, hope a key member of JDG makes a mistake and walks in. You need to overload one side of the map, which is going to give JDG room to make plays on the opposite side. So almost everything you're doing relies on a JDG mistake, or you're going to get less for what JDG can get more of.
And the crazy thing is, when you look at the CS scores across the map, like JDG are farming so exceptionally. They're beyond 10 CS per minute for most of this game so far. As Zoom tries to finish this tower off, LvMao's roamed up as well. And Demolish, on that tower would finish the job at this point for Zoom. And Chelizi has to respect that he's in a 2v1, so he can't really contest anymore. This should be the last outer taken now by JDG. And this feels a little bit more reminiscent of what we saw from JDG in 2020. This controlled macro gameplay where they squeeze out advantages on the map. This feels more like what you should expect from this squad.
Yeah, and again, they are playing this game very well, and it's nice because it's not extremely fast. It's not like IG levels of pace, but they're proactive. It's still controlled, which is reminiscent of JDG last year. Like, they're taking it at their own pace. And everything has been very team-based, right? We see pretty much across the board, everyone has been involved in every kill, excluding Loken, who's pretty much just been on wave clear duty. And that's the JDG we know and love. Me as well. So honestly, I'm not too sure if on broadcast right now, but you know, we are back in game with the Lyric solo cast, which is pretty nice for the fact that honestly, JDG are completely demolishing this game. So for the fact that, again, only one of us here, not too big of a deal. We do see JDG doing quite nice to just keep answering a lot of these side waves. It is going to be really interesting to see if a team fight breaks out, because honestly, I have no idea how to call team fights, but we do see Sam D getting taken down right away. Really nice ultimate being opened up by Loken, and I mean, things are only getting worse for the side of TT. We are going to see JDG turn towards the Baron. And where do we even go from here for the side of TT? Chelizi's posturing like he wants to do something. Maybe Xiaopeng can run in and try and steal it, but we still have the Emperor's Divide coming out from Yagao if that did happen. It does seem like TT are going to have to give it up. And this is so heartbreaking for TT, guys. We need to remember in Game 1, that was a winnable game. They were ahead. Game 2, they did win. They completely demolished JDG that game. Then they come in with this draft. We are going to see this replay, though. Lucian immediately getting picked off. Really nice W coming out from Loken. Chained into the cask. We see it finished off with the ultimate by the Jhin. And JDG are just taking advantage of the opportunities that TT have given them. But going back to the point, right, it just feels like TT's comp was a bit too hard to execute. Honestly, I'm not even sure how it really can find advantages against JDG, where again, it could answer the early game, but also does outscale. It is able to match the ganks. It does better in team fights. It does well in side lanes. We're gonna see TT contest mid wave, but JDG has Baron. They also have the ability to chase you down with the Mundo, as, ooh, LvMao coming in. Xiaopeng having to run away. Kanavi does keep going, but TT so far doing a good job to get out of harm's way. Nice route coming out from Loken as he opens up the curtain call, followed by a cast coming out from LvMao. Two members instantly bursted down, and Munchables is back. Oh, apparently I'm wrong. I can hear Munchables, but you guys can't hear Munchables, so I feel bad for you. Unlucky for you guys. Sam D, though, does pick up a kill on exit, and JDG's still going to be able to turn towards the dragon, as I'm starting to question if, like, the ghost of Munchables or a spirit is living in my head, since, again, you guys can't hear him, but I can. He's laughing right now, giggling, some would say. But resets are going to come out for the side of JDG as we go into the replay again. Oh, now Munchables is back. Munchables, take it away.
You know what, Larry?
Take it away, buddy.
Let me take this replay. This is my turn, all right? Because we saw the beautiful Loken jumps into assassinate Twyla, and then LvMao's like, no, I want some of the spotlight for myself. Beautiful explosive cast. The shots come in, lines them up in a shooting gallery, and pop, takes them down. Both of the carries fall. And Loken and LvMao once again, absolute masterclass of the bottom lane.
Yeah, now JDG are just going to keep pushing forward. They have Baron. They have an 8k gold lead, Munchables. Let's be honest, it's pretty done and dusted.
I mean, I didn't even see what happened for most of this. I feel like everything was pretty neutral. JDG was scaling pretty nicely, and then I come back and it's all kicked off, and JDG now are breaking apart the base as we see a route onto Teeen. This mid inhib will definitely fall. I don't know at what point they got the Baron. I don't know if that was off the back of that fight or if they got that previously, but
what you
feels
missed
pretty good for them, I guess.
Was a beautiful route coming out from Loken, which let LvMao engage, and then the curtain call opened up. He picked up 2 kills, and then bam, baby, JDG got a Baron.
Bing, bong, bam. Easy peasy for JDG, but here we go. Chelizi wants to punish him. He's not going to be able to because Zoom's got some oranges, and citrus is what he needs in this situation.
That damage coming out from Zoom onto Xiaopeng to start that off with, it looked like he hit a barrel in just 1 Q, doing a majority of his HP, so... Now, and going back to your point that, I didn't see a majority of what happened. I only saw JDG scaling, and but that was the problem to begin with, right? We saw JDG able to scale. We saw TT, their composition really doesn't have ways to open up the map. JDG have ways to answer, and yeah, it felt like it was over for TT before it started, unless JDG were the ones misplaying, unless JDG were misexecuting, which, let's be honest, isn't impossible. We've seen JDG do it many times this split, but luckily for JDG...
We've seen JDG do it many times this series.
Yeah,
never mind the split. Yeah, a bit of a diffy in the driffy, not gonna lie, but you know what, that's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. It's not about how hard you can hit, Lyric. It's about how hard you can get out drafted and keep moving forwards. Shots in onto Chelizi. He's forced to flash. He'll get out with his life, but his dignity is no longer intact as the bot lane towers go down. JDG will be able to march this one in and look towards the second in.
Hey, I'm just saying, after game 1 and then the game 2, TT have shown that they can get hit pretty hard and still come back. So if this was a best of 5 Munchables, there would still be a chance.
That's true. TT so far this split up about a 30% win rate when behind at 15 minutes. And they very much ticked that box this game. Maybe this is the 3-10 that miraculously they can find a comeback. I will say, I'm building this up as a TT comeback, but on my screen right now, JDG are just taking it in him. So I'm not sure that's quite going to happen. As that bottom inhib being down as well. When Baron's going to spawn in 50 seconds, it's not ideal. Here we go. Here's the fight. JDG happy to just sit. Where did he go? What was that damage? Chelizi's going to fall as Loken just flashes into the team. Yagao with another great ult. The game is over. JDG, they were just playing for the first couple of games. They decide to draft this late game composition and they don't even wait until late game to use it. They decimate TT in just under 30 minutes. It's a beautiful series here for JDG. They get themselves a much needed win on the board. Loken bounces a grenade to style on Sam D as JDG get themselves a 2-1 victory.
Munchables, you just said, you know, we are setting it up as a TT comeback, but some things are so depressing. You need to find hope in some way. You need to lie to yourself in some situations. I said that when I was casting with Clement Chu. This is one of those times we need to lie to ourselves. We need to lie to TT. We need to believe there's hope, but it was so insurmountable at that point. The gold lead, the draft, the items. It would have taken many instances of numerous times. Baron needs to be up. Elder needs to be up. That didn't happen. I think this was a really good instance, a very good example of not only a draft that outscales, but also is able to contest in the early game in the laning phases that they were able to get with these matchups. So JDG at the end of the day, they still look shaky. They are now sitting, I think they're still in 5th, but they are sitting at 6-3. But for a 6-3 team, they do look pretty shaky. Like, this is not the build of confidence you need as a JDG fan.
Yeah, it's like on the standings, it looks kind of pretty, but in terms of where they're actually at, in terms of the quality of gameplay that we're seeing, it's a little bit dicier than that. And it's an interesting one because when you look at some of the teams that they've played, like, I mean, EDG beat them handedly. IG beat them in week number 1 as well, but they've beaten some teams like RA, they've beaten BLG as well. They beat WE 2-0. So there are some teams that they've managed to get big series against. And it does feel like they are getting better, kind of, warming into it. I mean, a couple of the games this series didn't look too hot, but
I feel like
there are good things to say about JDG. It's just not consistent right now.
A good way of putting it after you kind of lay it out like that is JDG to me right now feel like the gatekeepers. They're this team that is have the fundamental skill and like player strength and even like some level of team play macro to where against worse teams, against teams that are more bound to make mistakes, JDG should be able to win. But up against the likes of EDG, IG, maybe RNG, these teams that do kind of tick those boxes, that JDG shouldn't be able to come out ahead. We know, sure, they did beat WE. I think that was a really nice win. That was also when WE was slumping a little bit. I think the good thing for JDG is they're still on their way to clearly being a playoff team. And right, the most important thing is getting your stuff together by the postseason. The regular split doesn't matter too much if in playoffs you show up.
Yep, and let's be honest, when we think back to last year, best of 5s were what JDG were the specialists in. Like, their drafts were exceptional in playoffs. The way that they developed over the course of a series was exceptional as well. Definitely a team that when you look towards playoffs, you expect a bit of a resurgence from, and you hope for in that regard, especially with Chashao and the coaching staff as well. Because Suning were very much in that same category that, you know, Suning over the course of last year went from a pretty weak team in spring to, I mean, we all know what happened in summer, right? We all know what happened at the World Championship. So the development of that squad over the course of the year was exceptional. And I'm anticipating a similar growth here from JDG across the course of 2021. I was expecting a higher starting point, to say the very least, but at least there's a good foundation to work with there. And they certainly have the tools in their arsenal to be able to make that happen.
Yeah, and honing in on this game specifically, it's pretty amazing how much damage Loken is able to put out on this Jhin pick and like the level of comfort he finds on it. Let's remember that he didn't do anything for the first like 15 minutes of the game. His whole team was involved in like 5 of their 7 kills. He was sitting at 0-0-0. Then we get into the mid game, towers are down, he starts roaming around, and no one is setting up his CC. He's throwing out his W and just locking members down himself and actually setting up for the rest of his team to go in. So I think really impressive performance coming out from Loken in that mid game.
Yeah, really, really good stuff from Loken, especially on the ults. Like, I feel like one of the underrated skills on Jhin is your accuracy with the curtain call. And we see some players that just don't miss shots and other players that just mash the R key and quite a lot of it goes awry. Loken is one of those players that definitely hits more than he misses. Certainly not 100%, but close enough to that point. And I think one of the skills that's underrated there is the patience of waiting for the correct shot to show itself. So Loken certainly showing his value when he's on things like this Jhin. A little disappointed that we didn't get to see his lethality Varus today, but in his defense, it was banned by TT every game. So it would have had to be basically a first pick to be able to grab it.
And that in itself is a big compliment that, hey, you're pulling out this pick that isn't considered meta, and now teams are so afraid of it, they need to take it away from you. Again, he was putting out huge damage numbers on that pick, and JDG is a team, like we said, there's like a foundation there. I do also like that they are more of a pick-based team, though I do feel like we are in more of a team fight-based meta. So there is some, I'd say, evolution they need to do, but the fact that they still do rely on the fundamentals that they put together last year, I think is what makes them exciting. The question is, can they round out the style more, or does Zoom still have to do a lot of the heavy lifting for their early game? Because it feels like if Zoom would lose lane in any of these games, that JDG would have fallen apart because their other lanes weren't really doing well.
Like, Larry, let's not talk about that, you know? Because Zoom doesn't lose lane, so it's okay. Let's just pretend that that's not an issue. We'll just focus on the positives.
It's not an issue, right? We just need to pretend that it won't ever be an issue. But hey, it probably won't. Again, we highlighted Zoom, in my opinion, still a top 2 top laner in the LPL this split, so he does not look like he's going to be slowing down anytime soon.
Yeah, I will say they haven't played against FPX just yet. And if there's anyone that can beat Zoom in lane, it might be Nuguri. We'll have to wait and see, though. I don't know what week that series is coming up, but I can't wait to see it. Our MVP for that game is going to be Loken once again, with an exceptional Jhin performance. We were just talking about how great his Jhin looked in this game. You could see it there on the stats. He was able to just kind of chill off on his own to start the game off, get some turret plates for himself, get a whole bunch of CS, and then transition that into some beautiful team fighting.
He seriously has always been impressive, in my opinion, in the past 2 years. In 2020, again, he came in with this reputation of just being a kind of a fill AD carry. I would say not even exactly a role player. People didn't even give him that respect. But we saw in 2020, I think he was kind of the epitome of what a role player could be, and even started to evolve beyond that, where he was the only consistent member when a lot of other JDG members were slumping at times last year. And even coming into this year, it doesn't feel like Loken has ever really been a massive problem for them. Is he the Uzi type player that's going to just take over a game with flashy mechanics? No. But he's always going to put out consistent damage. He's always going to be in the right place at the right time. And I think that is a very hard skill in and of itself.
Yeah, it's understanding how the map works, but also like there's a way of doing that too much, right? We see a lot of AD carries that roam with the rest of their squad a little too much, miss out on waves and stop building up. Loken definitely has that skill down to a T, where you are going to the lanes you need to sweep up the waves, and you are taking jungle camps when you need to keep on building up your items. But he's also always in the right place at the right time. He's also always making it to those team fights before it all kicks off. So definitely, I think, an underrated skill set within AD carries. But we're going to head over to the stage now because we've got Yagao standing by alongside Wendy for a